It can be difficult to tell whether a situation is being deliberately forced to fail when you're in the situation, but as an example, tossing a coin, you expect over time to have a frequency of both outcomes. The laws of the universe dictate that you should see an equal frequency of both outcomes. It might be one for a while, another for a while, but over time there should be an equal frequency. So if you imagine you get a coin and you write succeed on one side, fail on the other, you should expect to succeed as much as you fail in your interactions with a specific person. But if that interaction just continually fails, every time you interact it fails, every time they end up getting upset and having a go at you and blaming it all on you, it always goes wrong, they always fail to understand, they always find some way of making it your fault, it always ends up in a situation of you being frustrated, then you have to start to accept that you're being forced to fail. But then when you adapt yourself and mould yourself to that person and you behave in a way purely constructed to fulfill them, then the interaction works. Well, then you know for yourself why it's failing. It will only work if you structure yourself around them, for them, to keep them happy, to do what they want when they want because they want. And as soon as you exist beyond those parameters of their fulfillment, you become a problem and the situation fails. Well, then you know that they're deliberately failing. And it's as simple as tossing a coin. Now, there might be people out there who say, yeah, but if you was to carry out the test of tossing a coin 100 times, an infinite number of times, then it would also be a possibility to get 100 heads or 100 tails. Yes, it would be, but I'm not carrying it out an infinite number of times. And what is the potential that my interactions with, say, my dad are the process of tossing the coin and coming up with foul 100 times? But then if it's happening with my dad, then why is it happening with my brother as well? Because it'll only be once that it'd come out 100 times foul. So why is it happening with two people I interact with? And then why does it happen with my cousin? Why does it happen with my other cousin? And why does it happen with her son? Why does it happen with that person? And why does it happen with that person? And why does it happen with therapy? So you see, as much as, yes, carrying out the test an infinite number of times will have the potential, the probability and the chance, and it's almost a certainty that you will get one occasion where it comes out 100 heads or 100 tails, yes, I can understand that. But when you're carrying out that test and every time you carry it out it comes out 100% one answer, you have to start realising that that is a rigged test. It's like a double-headed coin and they're only letting you call tails. How are you ever going to get anywhere? Well, then you have to find a way to overcome that in some way. And that then becomes the difficulty, because the more that you try to overcome what they're doing, the more they'll try and do it. It's like for them to stop that behaviour then kind of proves that you're right. So they don't want to stop the behaviour because then they have to accept that they've proved you right in your assessment of the behaviour. And it doesn't matter what way you go about it, it really is that other person that isn't going to change. They're not going to alter what they do. They're not going to adapt themselves to your situation because they really don't want to. They are so selfish that all they care about is their own fulfillment. It doesn't matter that they're harming you. They really don't care that they're harming you. It doesn't matter about reality. Nothing matters beyond their fulfillment. But how do you get out of that situation when you're a child and that's your parents? What is the way out of that? How do you know that it's wrong? It's You know, how can you have an unconditional allowance to let someone inflict on you? How can you have unconditional trust in someone when that's what they use to take advantage of? You know, your parents know that as well, because they know what it was like when they were a child. You know, they know that they had unconditional love for their parents, so they know that you're going to have unconditional love for them. They find a way to blame you that you keep coming back, so you must have wanted that situation. If you didn't want it, why did you keep coming back? Because I had nowhere else to go, nowhere else to be. Why'd you think? You know, I was trapped on the spot with you. So don't make out that I was choosing to be here. I didn't choose to be here. You chose to create life. You chose to have sex. You chose to keep that life with you, and you chose to behave the way you did towards that life that you'd created. But somehow it's now meant to come back on me. I don't really see how that works, to be honest. But if you keep that person, in a state where you're constantly debilitating them, you're constantly keeping them in that situation, you never let them succeed or leave that situation, then how are they going to grow beyond you? You know, that is how people keep their children in a state of abuse. That is why some people never escape their abuse. They never ever move on or get away from it, because the other person doesn't get dealt with. You know, they don't end up facing criminal charges as a result. They don't get the medical help they need to fix their behaviour. All that happens is you get blamed for your behaviour for existing. It's like if there's a tree growing and you keep cutting the top off, and you cut it back and you keep it at a 2-foot stump. Don't matter how long it grows for or how long it is alive for, it's never ever going to grow beyond being a stump, because you keep it trimmed to the stump. But then if you blame the tree for not growing into a full tree and not having leaves and not producing fruit every summer, well, why did you expect that it would? How could you expect that it would, when you've kept it in a state where it cannot grow? But the world looks at you once you've turned 18, it's all your fault. Like, somehow the universe just bestows upon you the ability to live. No, it's your parents bringing you up. It's the life you live up to that point that gives you the ability to live. And if you really haven't existed as yourself, you have no creation of yourself, you've got no existence as you. You are not you. Then how do you live? You don't. You just carry on being a reflection of other people's satisfaction and expectation, because that is all they will let you be. That is the only boundary you're allowed to live within, and every time you exceed those boundaries, your life gets worse. You know, you get a job and they see the potential for you to leave, they see the potential for you to break free, so all the time you're at home, it's all the more destructive, all more deliberately destructive. But then you're carrying that into work with you, and it makes your work life a negative situation. I had that same thing at school. Like, the teachers didn't like me because I was outperforming people. You know, I could outthink them, I could outwit them from a young age. And they didn't like it. Now, they'd try and get clever and give me a stupid answer, and I'd give them reality back in return. Oh, and then all of a sudden they're upset. So, if I sit there doing nothing and I fail, I'll be in trouble with the teachers, I'll be in trouble at home. If I'm there and I'm succeeding, I'll be in trouble with the teachers, I'll be in trouble at home. I'm already in trouble at home. And that's the thing with teachers, that control that they have. Their ability to mess up your home life even more. Because they don't think you've got any problems in your home life. They don't even think for a second. All they're thinking about is their satisfaction in the classroom. You know, if you are already being abused, you are mentally, emotionally tortured, you're being physically beaten just for existing, and then a teacher phones up with a complaint because they've upset themselves, what are they then sending you home to? You know, they don't think about that, do they? It's a place where you're meant to be safe, and this, that, the other, all the protocols and procedures they're meant to follow, all the rules and regulations they're meant to follow, all the ways in which they have a level of care over you, a care for you, and they're meant to recognise what's going wrong in your life, and then they deliberately make things wrong in your life. You know, you're glad you're not at school, but you're stuck at home. You're glad you're not at home, but you're stuck at school, and you don't want to be in either place. You're just living this life where you do not want to exist. The only option is to not exist. And the whole time you're existing in non-existence, you're a problem. Every time you exist beyond non-existence, you are a problem. Well then, if no matter what you do, you are going to be labelled a problem, then it must be the other person making you the problem. You know, you tell me I'm a problem for behaving this way, I change my behaviour and oppose that. You tell me I'm a problem for being that way. So, it's that toss of a coin. It always fails. Every time the interaction fails. Every time you interact with that person, that interaction fails. They say, like, you can't change other people, all you can do is change yourself, but for a person to create a different persona, a different existence for everyone that they meet, surely that's sociopathic or schizophrenic. I'm not exactly sure which one it would be, but you wouldn't exactly be demonstrating healthy personality traits for the fact that you mould yourself around those people in that way. And onwardly, that could lead to certain negative behaviours. Behaviours that, if you were predisposed to them, would be seen as problematic. And what's the route out? You try and explain it to a medical professional, you're paranoid. Why do you feel like the world is against you? Why do you feel like everybody hates you? I'm not. I'm trying to get help to interact with people, and I recognise where the interaction goes wrong. Once I recognise where the interaction goes wrong, I tell you where the interaction's going wrong, so that you can help me to make progress and get the interaction right. Why can't we work like that? Why can't therapy work like that? Why can't this person who's signed a contract, who's taken on a role, who's taken an oath, who has responsibility, be sitting there in a room with a patient who has rights? Why can't they let that patient have the right to tell the truth? Why can't they let that patient have the right to tell their story? Why can't they, the therapist, then be responsible for helping that person to obtain their rights? You see, it's very simple to me. It's all very simple and basic. And people accuse me of overthinking things. I don't overthink things. The problem for them is I am too capable of thinking. Because it doesn't take me effort to lift that mental weight. But I'm lifting more mental weight than they could ever imagine lifting. So therefore they think that I'm overthinking. No, they're overthinking. For them to comprehend what I'm saying is so hard for them to think they're overthinking. For me, this is an everyday thing. This is just how I function. You know, you feed in the information, the answer comes out. It's like a calculator. You know, you type that number, you press the button for the action you want, and then you type in the other number, then you press the equals, and the answer comes out. Do you accuse a calculator of overthinking, or do you accept that that is what it's made to do? You see, why do I necessarily have to change? Why can't we find a use for what I am? Why has no one ever looked at it from that angle? Maybe the problem isn't what he is the problem. Maybe the problem is what you do with what he is. Can't we look at it from that angle? Or are you absolutely convinced that I must change? Because then you're at a conclusion that I must change. You're starting from a conclusion of I must change. Well, what room is there for an honest investigation of the reality of the situation if you're already beginning from a conclusion that I must change? In what way must I change? What is the way that I have to be? And then they reply with, there is no way that you have to be. There is no way that you must be. There is no way that you should be. There is no way that you need to be. Well then, how can you tell me the way I am is wrong? Tell me how I am wrong then. You know, you've got decorators decorating your house. You walk in and you say, oh, you've painted that the wrong colour. And they say, well, what colour should it be? Say, well, there's no colour it should be, but you've painted it the wrong colour. Well then, what colour should we paint it? Well, there's no way that I want it painted. You know, there's no specific colour I want it to be, but you've painted it the wrong colour. At what point do you say, fuck off, mate? Seriously, have a word with yourself. You're being a prick. There's got to come a point, isn't there? But I give these simple metaphors, these simple demonstrations, it's a scenario that follows the exact same pattern. But they don't want to see the pattern in the scenario, because if they draw the pattern out of that scenario and apply that pattern onto the scenario we are actually in, then they have to face what they are doing wrong. So therefore we toss the coin again and I foul, and I toss the coin again and I foul, and I toss the coin again and I foul, and I toss the coin again and I foul. And if I point out that this is a preset process of forcing me to foul, then I'm paranoid. You tell me, someone out there tell me how I'm meant to get anywhere when I see reality for what reality is, when all I am stuck in is reality. All I calculate is reality. All I know is reality. I am so rigidly stuck in reality that I will not leave reality, but yet you want to tell me that what I think isn't happening. You want to make it a feeling. Why? I don't feel like 2 plus 2 equals 4. I know 2 plus 2 equals 4. It's that simple. I don't see why everything has to be complicated for people. The only reason can be is because they have a want, a will, a desire, a point at which they will become fulfilled, and the situation must then reach the point of their fulfillment. And if it doesn't, then I am the blockage to their fulfillment. And that is the way that I'm a problem for them. That is the way that my behaviour is a problem. That I'm stopping them from getting their fulfillment out of me or the situation. Well then, that is abuse. That is bullying. That is harassment. And then if there's any negative outcome as a result of that happening, well then that is intimidation. That is manipulation. That is the reality of what people do to people every day. And no one wants to deal with the fact that people are living that. Because it's so much easier just to say, it isn't happening. No, it isn't happening like that. And how much frustration do you think that causes for someone who is telling you what is actually happening? Someone who is dealing with reality, who lives reality every day, who has nothing but reality, for you to then pretend you don't understand reality. How do I get anywhere?